In the 2000s, there was a guy who seemed simply untouchable. His name, Justin Timberlake. He left a boy band, became the biggest male artist on the planet, dominated pop, R&B, hip-hop, Hollywood, and even the internet, before he became what he is today. But while his career kept growing, a lot of people started to wonder if Justin Timberlake is really a musical genius or just the perfect face the industry always needed. Because behind the hits, the Grammys, Sexy Back, there was a story much more complicated than it seems. And I would even say much more underprivileged than it seems. And that's what we're going to discuss in today's video. But first, hey everyone, this is Justin Saldanha. Listen, if you're not subscribed to this channel yet, man, now's the time. Subscribe, like, enable notifications. T-shirt store link is in the description. Products related to JT or not will also appear throughout this entire video. Follow me on social media and let's go, because this video is more like a mix of documentary and opinion video, and I want to see if you guys will enjoy it. Justin Randall Timberlake was born on January 31, 1981 in Memphis, Tennessee. A big detail is that Timberlake's father was part of a Baptist church choir, so singing and music as a whole have been a part of his life practically since he was born. But it was his grandfather who was truly responsible for introducing Justin Timberlake to the musical influences he still carries today. He introduced him to legends of American country music like Willie Nelson and Johnny Cash. But even so, Justin Timberlake was never really into gospel or country. What he really liked was R&B, so names like Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder, and Al Green were on his childhood playlist. And speaking of childhood, that's when Justin's artistic aspirations began, right? Because from an early age, he already had that artist flair that everyone recognizes when a kid has it. He was selected to be one of the Mouseketeers on a TV show called The Mickey Mouse Club. In other words, he was one of the child hosts of that show. Just as a fun fact, but I think you probably already know, this Mickey Mouse Club was kind of like a kid star factory for future American stars, right? And some Canadians too. And some of Justin Timberlake's colleagues included the actor Ryan Gosling, the singer Christina Aguilera, the actress Carrie Russell, his future NSYNC bandmate JC Chasez, and his future girlfriend Britney Spears. But hold on a bit, because Britney will come off a little better later in this video. When the Mickey Mouse Club ended in '94, Justin didn't want to go back to being just a regular kid from Memphis. He wanted to be himself actually on stage. That's when fate, or rather the manager Lou Pearlman, came into play. Just for context guys, this Lou Pearlman is a very controversial manager in the music industry. He was also the guy who formed the Backstreet Boys. There's a documentary about him on the internet. That's what you need to know about Lou in this video. Then Justin called his buddy from the Mickey Mouse Club, JC, and got together with Chris Kirkpatrick, Joey Fatone, and Lace Bass, and they formed NSYNC. Here guys, our theory starts to take shape, because ever since NSYNC, most of the things Justin Timberlake did were meticulously calculated. Just so you guys have an idea, NSYNC, right, that name, it comes from the last letters of each member's name. And speaking of sound, this one really was meticulously calculated. The big difference with Timberlake and NSYNC is that while the other boy bands had guys who were just pretty faces or had a specific role, aesthetically within the group, Justin brought artistic substance, you know, and a singing vibe that really reflected his R&B influences, like Stevie Wonder himself. He also started doing beatboxing at NSYNC shows, you know, and then he gained that cool status and also started getting closer to the hip-hop crowd. And it's also impossible to talk about this NSYNC era without mentioning those ramen noodle hairstyles they had back then, which were a huge craze at the turn of the millennium. It was a trend, but then NSYNC really blew up. On the album No Strings Attached from 2000, they simply sold 2.4 million copies in just 1 week, and that was an insane record. And of course, they brought us some big pop hits, like the song Bye. But man, even within NSYNC, Justin Timberlake was already showing signs that the group was too small for him, you know? And he had a completely different vibe from what the industry wanted for male pop stars at that time. So man, since he was already the frontman of the group, kind of the unofficial leader of NSYNC, it was obvious he would start wanting to be like the prince of his generation. The year was 2001, and NSYNC was releasing the album Celebrity, and they were still one of the biggest groups in the world. However, Justin Timberlake already had his mind somewhere else. It was on this album that a major event happened, because he had to work along with NSYNC with none other than Pharrell Williams and Chad Hugo, who made up the Neptunes. We have a specific video about the two of them here on this channel. On this album, they produced the song Girlfriend for NSYNC, and something clicked immediately. Pharrell had brought a really distinct, very urban style to the boy band, you know, compared to the boy bands of that time. For Justin Timberlake, it likely felt like an early version of his future artistic vision. But shortly before the end of NSYNC, Justin Timberlake had written the song Gone for Michael Jackson, hoping that this track would be included on the Invincible album. Michael Jackson rejected Timberlake's composition, but he really liked the guy's artistic style. And then the King of Pop simply called Justin Timberlake, and years later he said that this call changed his life, and from that moment on he knew what he wanted to do with his life. In other words, it was the King of Pop's validation for the Prince of Pop R&B. Man, a lot of people say that Justin Timberlake was just lucky, but actually, to me, he had a very interesting strategic vision. While NSYNC was announcing a hiatus, Justin Timberlake was already in the studio shaping his image as this new hair to pop R&B. He stopped wearing his ramen noodle hair, swapped the boy band choreography for a smoother groove, and started singing in falsetto all the time, which was a clear reference to Marvin Gaye, whom he listened to as a kid. As a fun fact, the Neptunes also produced Justin Timberlake's first album, Justified, as you already know, and Pharrell Williams simply took the other songs that Michael Jackson had rejected and used them on Justin Timberlake's album. And the result? With this first project, they made history. Released in 2002, this was when everyone got to know Justin as a solo artist, because the Justified album was a declaration of war against the boy band image he had. The album sold over 10 million copies worldwide, but the real impact was cultural. He no longer wanted the 12-year-old teenage fans screaming after him. He simply wanted to earn the validation of the demanding R&B audience. And to be straight up, he did it with the singles that took the world by storm, starting with the first track, the song Like I Love You. This track was like a test drive, you know? That famous Test the Water single I talk about a lot here on the channel, to see if the audience would like it. And right away, the audience really liked it. And that party vibe and Timberlake's falsettos won over a legion of fans. As a result, the track reached the top of the charts and showed Timberlake's necessary swagger. The second single was the song Cry Me a River. Produced by Timbaland, this song caused a huge stir, because pretty much everyone understood that it was about Justin Timberlake's messy breakup with Britney Spears, who at the time were dating and were that quintessential early 2000s couple. This song got massive airplay on MTV and Multishow here in Brazil. Imagine how it was abroad. The fact is, it reached number 3 on the Hot 100, and man, it already showed that Justin Timberlake was on the rise, and he wasn't playing around, huh? The third track is the song Rock Your Body. Originally written for Invincible, man, I can't see this song nowadays in anyone else's voice but Justin Timberlake's, not even Michael Jackson's. In fact, at that time, this track sparked comparisons between Timberlake and the King of Pop. For some, it was very valid, and for others, it was unfair. This guy is just starting out, and already trying to establish himself as the Prince of Pop. The fourth single was Señorita. But it was a song that established Timberlake alongside Pharrell as a cool guy who could sing anything. Then, at that time, Justin Timberlake achieved a very rare feat, which was being accepted and played on both pop and hip-hop and R&B radio stations. And I'm sure you had some video mixtape in your life that had a bunch of rap, R&B, hip-hop songs, and at least Rock Your Body by Justin Timberlake. But by teaming up with the biggest black producers of the moment, Pharrell, right, and later Timbaland, Justin wasn't just making good music. With this work, he won 2 Grammys, including Best Pop Vocal Album. In other words, validation from the public and validation from the critics, which mattered just as much. With that, man, 2002 and 2003 were completely dominated by Justin Timberlake, both in music and outside of it as well. He went on tour with his fellow Mickey Mouse Club member, Christina Aguilera, and that tour was called Justified and Loving It, which was basically a strategy to promote the phrase I'm loving it. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. It was used a lot by McDonald's. I think it still is abroad, but here in Brazil, it was that famous amo muito tudo isso. I love all of this so much. He made a song that was included in the soundtrack of the movie Shark Tale, marking the beginning of his collaborations in children's movies, which was something very important in Timberlake's career, and later on, we will also talk a bit more about that. In addition to doing occasional and very important collaborations with people from hip-hop, like for example, the song Signs, which he did with Snoop Dogg, the song Work It, which he did with Nelly, and no less important, Where is the Love with the Black Eyed Peas. Where is the love, y'all? People killing people. The story behind Where is the Love is really interesting, because a lot of people are surprised to find out that Justin Timberlake is in this song, even though his voice is highly recognizable in the chorus. The reason he wasn't credited on this legendary track is because at the time he was still under contract with Jive Records, while the Black Eyed Peas were part of Interscope Records. But let's agree that the most memorable part of the song, the people killing, people dying, is the part he sings, right? As a result of all this, Where's the Love was #1 practically all over the world. Here it was basically Justin Timberlake smoothly and also a bit more aggressively getting into hip-hop, especially in this Black Eyed Peas Ele-Funk era, when they were becoming more mainstream. But we've already talked about Black Eyed Peas in another video here as well. It's worth checking it out. And with the whole world in your hands, it's only fair that the eyes of the whole world are on you. So during this period in 2004, JT was invited to perform with other artists during the Super Bowl halftime show. In a highly electrifying performance as only he knows how, Justin joined forces with none other than the legendary Janet Jackson. No one expected what would happen at the end of that performance. On the last note of the song Rock Your Body, Jessie pulled a part of Janet's costume that ended up exposing her breasts for just a second. It was the birth of the term wardrobe malfunction, meaning a costume malfunction. But it also marked one of the most legendary and memorable cancellations in music history. That's because the world stopped, the media freaked out, but while chaos took over behind the scenes of the industry, Justin's career bizarrely didn't suffer a scratch. He remained a mainstream favorite and kept getting bigger, while in Janet's case, things were much more complicated, and we'll talk about that soon too. After dominating music in the first half of the 2000s, Justin took a much riskier leap in his artistic career. He stepped away from the music studios a bit and went to the Hollywood studios, because the guy also wanted to be an actor. He appeared in movies like Alpha Dog alongside Bruce Willis, voiced the Prince in the movie Shrek the Third, and started becoming a regular on Saturday Night Live, showing a comedic side that the audience loved.
Giving it away.
But of course, the guy was still a top musician and he couldn't stay away from the studios, and the next step, what comes next, musically speaking, would turn Timberlake into a total legend, man. That's because in 2006, man, he went all in on R&B. He locked himself in the studio with Timbaland and the strategist Danger, the legendary Danger, so they could create the album Future Sex Love Sound. Here, man, the sound wasn't just something that reminded you of Michael Jackson. It was was something dirtier, grittier, more electronic, more futuristic, and super sensual. There was a lot of stuff mixed in there, and it worked really well. The first single, the lead single, was the song Sexy Back, and this track blew everyone's mind. Like, damn, what is this distorted voice? At a time when autotune and all that trap stuff weren't even close to becoming popular, T-Pain was just starting out back then, But the heavy beat, the bluish and cinematic music video won everyone over. In the end, Sexy Back hit #1 on the Hot 100, and it was a huge success. But I don't need to limit myself to just Sexy Back, because man, this album had hit after hit. Starting with the second hit, which was the song My Love, a collaboration with T.I. that, guess what, also reached #1. Then came What Goes Around Comes Around, which, guess what, also reached #1. This achievement made Justin the first guy after Usher to have 3 consecutive #1 songs on the Hot 100. And man, at that time, Timberlake didn't miss with any track he released. I mean, except for that Love Stone by Tinkas Nozzy, which played a lot here in Brazil. And I don't know who liked that nonsense, because I didn't like it. Wait, hold on, man. And an honorable mention to the underrated Summer Love, which, here at home, this masterpiece from the 2000s was #1, and I don't even care. I can't wait to fall in love. Man, at that moment, Justin Timberlake was no longer the guy who left NSYNC. He was simply the biggest male artist on the planet, at his peak, He set the trends, the sound on the radio, and what was considered cool for everyone. Something that not many people talk about, I think especially here in Brazil, right, because it's a different context, is that at the same time he was huge in music, he not only embraced cinema, but he also embraced something else that was really interesting, which was comedy. And in 2006, he joined the crew from Saturday Night Live and did a sketch with the actor Andy Samberg called Dick in the Box, which is one of the most memorable sketches from the show to this day. To sum it up for you guys, the sketch was a parody of those sensual R&B groups from the 90s, like Jodeci, for example. It's my dick in the box. And the whole thing is that they used the box here on their waist. And when someone opened the box, there was a present inside, but you already get what it is. And the coolest part of all is that this sketch actually won an Emmy. After beating the game in several different areas, Justin Timberlake decided to become a mogul. He bought part of MySpace. Yes, he tried to save the social network that Facebook later killed. He also launched his own tequila brand and even a clothing line, William Ross. But with all these things to do, he didn't stop making music. And then, at that time, he kind of became, let's say, a high-profile collaborator. Having Justin Timberlake on a song was a total status symbol, straight up. The first highly notable feature by Timberlake in that era was on the album Shock Value, by his frequent collaborator, Timbaland, on the song Give It To Me, which also features Nelly Furtado. I shared some of the story in the Timbaland video, but it's worth exploring what happened for that. On this track, each of the artists threw a diss at someone in the industry or at another artist. Watch the Timbaland video where I talk about everyone, but here I'm going to talk about Timberlake because in his part he was throwing shade at one of the kings of pop, right? The other king of pop, who was Prince. The whole thing started at a farter party in 2006. Prince, who was never one to take disrespect and was always very protective of the sound of funk and R&B, got on stage and threw a direct jab. He said, paraphrasing here for you, "For those saying sex is back, let me tell you, my brother, sex never left." And obviously the audience there gave him a standing ovation. And who was in that audience? Justin Timberlake himself, who didn't really like that comment because he felt it was a direct jab at him. So Timberlake didn't post anything on Twitter, didn't give any shade interviews, he simply sent a diss to Prince in Timbaland's song, in the famous lines, "If sexy never left, then why is everybody on my case?" And he didn't stop there. In one of the worst lines according to Prince's fans, he says, "I'm a seasoned veteran, you're just a stepping stone apprentice." And man, simply, Timberlake called Prince, who is one of the legends of black music from from the 80s and even today, an apprentice. But speaking of other collaborations, if in 2006 he was already the prince in this genre, in 2007, 2008 and 2009, things were going to get even better for Timberlake. That's when he takes part in the song 4 Minutes with Madonna. He was also brought in as one of the producers for the album Hard Candy, which marked a new phase for the Queen of Pop, a phase that was a bit more urban than what she had been consolidating over the decades. Man, you can't think about this song or this era of Madonna without Justin Timberlake, because he was fundamental to the success of the song too, which, man, was a huge global hit. Another song he was also involved in was Win Win Rap by Rihanna from her album Good Girl Gone Bad, which Timberlake also produced. Even though he only appears on this track saying that now ladies, give me that up. Anyway, you get the idea. He also wrote this song and was involved in much of the creative process of this album, which was a turning point in Rihanna's career. And just for the record, there was also the song Love, Sex and Magic by Ciara for her album Fantasy Ride. And just so you have an idea, he was also a producer on this album, but we will talk about Ciara in another video. And to wrap it up, there was the song Dead and Gone by T.I. And man, this one paved the way and earned Timberlake street cred. This epic hip-hop ballad reached number 2 on the Hot 100. But we talked about T.I. in the previous video, that one, and I really want you guys to watch that banger too. And after squeezing every drop of success from Future Sex Love Sounds, Justin Timberlake did what few artists at their peak have the courage to do. He kind of put his solo music career on ice. And from 2008 to 2012, he executed a plan with surgical precision to work on his image a bit outside of music. And in those other businesses, he was already consolidating. I think one of the most memorable ones was in the movies, right? When he took part in the 2010 film The Social Network, which is that movie that tells the story of the creation of Facebook. He played Sean Parker, the creator of Napster, and was highly acclaimed by critics. But you know, a musician is a musician, and he can't stay away from the studio for too long. And already in 2012, there were rumors going around on the internet that Timberlake was working on a new album, which was confirmed in January 2013. He really confirmed that it was coming. And at the end of that January in 2013, he released the first song of that era, which was the track Suit and Tie, featuring Jay-Z, and also produced by Timbaland. Honestly, it's one of Timberlake's best songs. Less than a month later, he released the song Mirrors. That one people liked right away. It reached number 2 on the Hot 100. And I would even go so far as to say that it's one of Justin Timberlake's trademarks in music. And Mirrors opened the way for Timberlake to release his third studio album, the legendary The 2020 Experience, which came out in March 2013. And later, there was another deluxe edition, which brought a song that was also played a lot in Brazil, which was that one, TKO. During this 2010s decade, especially at the beginning, that side of Timberlake as a music producer and executive really became very apparent. I have to say that of the albums he produced, the most memorable for me was by Duran, though I can't recall the name right now, and the self-titled, the legendary surprise album by Beyoncé called Beyoncé. But when Timbaland was called to be one of the main producers of Michael Jackson's posthumous album called Escape, which would only come out in 2014, there was no better person for him to call than Justin Timberlake, and they did something really cool there, guys. Basically, Michael Jackson had some demos recorded in the 80s. And one of the songs was a discarded demo from the album Thriller from 1983, which, man, didn't make it in. I don't know why. Felt so. When they mess with this song and put Justin Timberlake as a featured artist, man, I can tell you that now they are reviving this song because of the Michael Jackson movie. But Love Never Felt So Good is one of the best songs by Timberlake, and even by Michael Jackson, because there is a solo version by MJ which is really awesome. Let's be there. The resultado. Love Never Felt So Good is one of the most memorable songs from 2014, baby. I'm going to listen to it after this video. And just so you can see how things come full circle, right? The guy who started his solo career picking up Michael Jackson's Leftovers was now chosen to finish a posthumous work of the King of Pop. Man, it was like he officially received the crown there as one of Michael Jackson's successors. In 2016, Justin Timberlake was called to be the voice actor for the main character in the animated movie, you know, Trolls. And besides that, he was also the music producer for the movie's album. But of course, as the producer, he wasn't going to miss the chance to put one of his own tracks in there. But I think not even Justin Timberlake himself expected that the song Don't Stop the Feeling would become one of his biggest hits. The song became his fourth #1 on the Hot 100 and even achieved the feat of debuting at #1. So guys, 2 days before he was one of the main acts at the 2018 Super Bowl, he decided to release another studio album, his Man of the Woods, which literally means Man of the Woods. There he tried to sell the image of a Tennessee man, a real country guy, but with Timberland still handling production. But when he scored a hit with the song Say Something, man, people saw that he still had the Midas touch for making hits. It's the show. From here on out, guys, it's just praise for Justin Timberlake's legacy. Man, his name is one of the great pillars of R&B and pop culture as a whole to this day. But we need to ask the question, right? If Justin Timberlake weren't Justin Timberlake, would he have gotten to where he is today? Because between one hit and another, names like Britney Spears herself and Janet Jackson were left behind. And this is where a lot of people separate the guy's talent from the privilege he received throughout his career. And a lot of people keep asking themselves, is Justin Timberlake really a genius? Or was he the white face that the industry used to safely sell black culture to the mainstream without fear of being cancelled? Because that's the thing, right, guys? With great hits come great responsibilities, and in Timberlake's case, it was no different. Let's start with the Britney Spears situation, right? That was that whole victim narrative, let's put it that way. And that's the part that aged the worst, right? Because the romance with Britney, which started way back in the innocence of the Mickey Mouse Club, turned into one of the most sinister chapters in pop culture. After Timberlake broke up with Britney, he gave several interviews, right, over there in the United States to talk about what the relationship was like. And sometimes people think he even went too far. If my memory isn't failing me, man, once, cause I was really young, man, I was a kid, but I think I saw something about people criticizing him because he said he was the first to sleep with Britney. Something like that. If I'm wrong or if I'm right, you can correct me in the comments, because I just remembered this out of nowhere right now. And then when he released the song Cry Me a River, especially the music video, right, which has that woman who kind of looks like Britney Spears showing up there, man, the media really went after the girl. A lot of people saw it as a way for him to come off as a decent guy, the guy who got played, the good guy who was messed over by a lost girl, so to speak, in quotes, right, who ended up messing him over, something like that. And that kind of destroyed Britney's mental health, who at that time was already being heavily targeted just for being who she was. And the result of all this was that while his career was taking off as a desirable bachelor, Britney was being trashed by the media and being called a cheater, a traitor. The memoir she released some time ago revealed a lot about that relationship. She even talked about the fact that she got pregnant. I can't say the word here. You know which one I mean, right? She got pregnant, right? But she couldn't have the baby, and the procedure was done at home without a doctor. It's very unsafe, and she wanted the baby. Anyway, you understand what I'm talking about, what she had to do because they asked her to. And in the book, she describes this moment as one of the most traumatic of her life. The second thing was also the issue with Janet Jackson and the abandonment after the Super Bowl controversy. Man, Janet was really cancelled. I actually remember that, you know? She was really cancelled. She was banned from events and pulled from the programming on music video channels like MTV, for example. Her songs even stopped playing on the radio over there. And like all of this happened as if it was 100% the singer's fault. And I'll tell you, man, she's a Jackson. I mean, she's a music legend, you know? And even so, The woman was really cancelled. I can even tell you guys that her career was never the same after that. Nowadays, people are recreating and bringing back a lot of things, but man, for a good 15 years, she was mostly remembered for that Super Bowl situation. But meanwhile, Timberlake's career kept rising. I also remember that he went to the Grammys, a Grammy Award show, yeah, days after that incident, and the media kind of avoided asking him about those things. Some people called him the Teflon Man, right? Like nothing would stick to him, you know? And a lot of people said he was seen as the golden boy, while she was seen as the troublemaker. As you probably know, recently, a few years ago, that apology letter from Justin Timberlake came out. And that only came after the documentary Framing Britney Spears, which sparked a wave of hate against Timberlake on the internet. And in that note he posted on Instagram, he apologizes to Britney and Janet, writing things like, "I understand what I said in those moments, and in many others I benefited from the structure that the system created," and so on and so on. A lot of people weren't convinced by Timberlake's words, and they say he only did it because real cancel culture, now in the internet era, came knocking at his door. However, a situation kind of highlighted a bit of Timberlake's privilege for many people, both on the internet and in the media. And a lot of this came after the speech that actor Jesse Williams gave at the 2016 BET Awards, in which he talked about privilege and cultural appropriation within the industry. Jesse Timberlake tweeted saying he was inspired by that, and a follower questioned him, right, saying, "Does that mean you're going to stop appropriating our culture?" Then Timberlake responded in a way that a lot of people didn't like. "You sweet soul, the more you realize that we are all the same, the more we can understand each other." The critic took a screenshot and slammed Timberlake because of that phrase, accusing him of being colorblind, meaning he doesn't see color, he sees the world as completely beautiful. And all of this came with other accusations that he made billions in this industry without knowing the pain of actually being a person of color. And even recently there were criticisms about this kind of thing, when some artists kind of said that Timberlake switched between styles depending on what was convenient for the industry to stay relevant. And when that sound gets played out, like what happened with Man of the Woods, he tries to go back to being the white country guy, as if nothing ever happened. And in June 2024, Timberlake made headlines because of a big controversy, right? He was spotted and pulled over by the police after being detained for driving under the influence. And the mugshot, right? Timberlake's mugshot went around the world. There were several reports that his team did everything they could to get that photo off the internet to clean up his image. But you know how things are on the internet, right? Once it's out there, man, it's never coming down. And in March of this year, news came out that he was going to sue the police in an attempt to stop the images from being circulated because they were causing irreparable damage to his own image. And a lot of people made fun of it on the internet and social media, saying, "I'd like to see what would happen if you were actually black." And this is the point where we reach the conclusion of this video. Why did Jesse Timberlake's mugshot bother and shock so many people? Man, rappers are getting arrested all the time, and their photos are all over the world. Everyone sees them. Travis Scott, all those guys. Their mugshots are all over the internet, everywhere. But with Timberlake, it was like, oh my god, the Golden Boy's image is tarnished. Let's clean it up and remove it from the internet. Actually, there was that line in the video he released during the arrest saying this would ruin the tour. But the cop was Gen Z or something, didn't really know who Timberlake was. Said, "What tour?" "The world tour." And that became a big meme abroad. The concern with the business, the image, and the brand of Jesse Timberlake above any human responsibility made people not very reflective. Jesse isn't a classic movie villain. He's a reflection of an industry that chooses who can make mistakes and who can be cancelled. Man, that's the thing, right? Is Timberlake talented? To me, that's unquestionable. Does he deserve the hits he has? Absolutely. The guy worked really hard for it, but would he have gotten where he is to legendary status if he didn't have that stereotype and used the tools that made a certain group stand out with a lot of resistance? That's the key point. Today, in 2026, the public doesn't really accept strategic silence anymore, you know? And in the end, Jesse Timberlake is the clear example that talent takes you really far. But if you are protected, man, you are untouchable. But I wanted to hear from you guys.
Over all these years, do you guys think Jesse Timberlake became an unfairly treated genius like some people see him now? Or did he know how to play the game better than anyone else?
Tell me everything. And hey, remember that I'm a big fan of Timberlake. And do you guys still listen to his songs? If yes, tell us here which one you like the most, which one was missing, and much love guys, because I'm wrapping up here. Anyway, big hug from Gerson Saldanha, see you in our next video, and thanks!